Okay, guys, I would like to welcome you all to our first LTL webinar, LTL 25, the future of LTL operations, and how to prepare ourselves for that. This presentation has been prepared by myself and Nate Wells. Nate Wells is Senior Vice President of Line Haul and Engineering at XPO. He's going to give a brief introduction about himself in a minute or so. I'm also being joined by five industry leaders, Webb Estes, from Estes, Jack Levis, who was formerly at UPS, Patrick Sugar, who is currently at Saia, Charlie Prickett, AAA Cooper, and Scott Ware from YRC Worldwide. So they will be myself and Nate will be the initial speakers, then will become the moderator, and five panelists will come and they will share their thoughts as well. A little bit of a perspective about the motivation of this webinar. We have been thinking for quite some time about what we can do to transform the LTL industry. I've been working in the industry for almost 10 years. I have seen the pace of change. Things are definitely getting better, but not at the pace we would like it to be. And I spoke to many leaders in the last 1 month or so, and they all agree with me that things are improving, things are getting better, but the pace of change needs to speed up. So we brought all these industry leaders to discuss together what we can do to speed up the pace, what we can do together so that the industry gets better without anybody losing the competitive advantage. We know that everybody has doing their unique things, make them successful. How we can make them successful at the same time overall help the industry, how we can raise the bar and let everybody compete with the raised bar. So for that, we have put together some thoughts in this presentation that I would like to share with you. I would now start with sharing my screen. I hope that you can see my screen now.
Yeah, we can see it.
Wonderful. Yeah. So the way we're going to conduct the presentation is that we're going to have a talk for about 40 minutes about presentation by myself and Nate about the future of LTL operations. And that requires the new technologies in the hardware and software space coming to us. We have shared with you some thoughts about how to prepare for the future. And after that, we will have a half an hour of panel discussion. In the panel discussion, we're going to do it somewhat differently than I initially planned. I thought that new format will be more educative and interesting for everyone. We have identified 4 questions for all the panel members, and we are going to give them about 5 minutes of time about sharing their thoughts. I think that you're going to get some really good insights about what do they think about the future, what technologies will be becoming, what is their highest priority, and what should do about that. So the total duration of this session is about 1 hour, 15 minutes. I hope that this session would be very educative for you. Now Nate is going to take over. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and Nate will share his screen.
Thanks, Ravi. When Ravi reached out to me, and we've done this, 3 years in a row, Ravi, we talked about convergence, we talked about LTL operations, and when you reached out to me this year, said, hey, let's do it virtually, I was excited. So before I get started with a quick introduction, I wanted to say this. In light of all of our LTL leaders that have been on the front lines for the past 6-7 months during this challenging time, delivering for our customers day in and day out, I just have to say thank you. And to our 15,000 drivers and frontline dock workers that have been delivering for our customers day in and day out, I have to say thank you. So before we get deep, I wanted to share that I have about 17 years experience in logistics, operations, planning, as the Senior Vice President of Ops Planning and Engineering for XPO. I'm excited about this technology. I also have to share that before coming to XPO, I was in LTL for FedEx, Operations Planning and Engineering. For that, as a Senior Director at Coca-Cola, Service and Supply Planning Strategies, focusing on our customers. But all of that is really focused on one thing. What is the future? How can we prepare for it? So I wanted to start out with that kind of approach. And from an overview, after this slide, we will all be LTL PhD, right? This is a quick overview of LTL operations. Shipments are not typically large enough to go on full truckload, And we've heard this, and many of our partners on this call, our LTL experts, want to say thank you for not only the work that you're doing in your organization, but we've heard these two things, that we have complex operations compared to full truckload. Many of us have legacy systems. We're managing through legacy systems and implementing technology at the same time. If I draw your attention to the right side, this is just a visual view of what LTL looks like, and we'll talk about technology, these three buckets, be it pickup and delivery for our customers, what we call line haul, how we deliver from facility to facility, and ultimately deliver to end-of-line centers where we service our customers. It can look like a hub and spoke, but on average, a pallet in LTO travels to about 2.5 locations, 3 locations, ultimately to service the customer. I wanted to level set because many people think about LTL as an overview, but it's a complex business. And when we talk about this focus of technology, I'm just going to keep 3 core themes in front of us. And the 3 core themes in every single LTL industry is, how do we focus on safety? That means we want our people to work safer. We want to talk about safer trucks. We're going to talk about being in a safer environment. We've done a lot with ELD. We've done a lot with this technology. So we'll talk about that. But service, we are here for our customers. Whatever technology we roll out, we want to make sure we can meet the promise of delivery, meet the promise of pickup. We deliver it damage-free, right? And we have accurate billing. But also, we get paid for what we sell. We are a for-profit business. So we want to make sure LTO executes at the highest level. And the last piece, and I call it the efficiency. There's a lot of technology, and we'll talk about a couple things. And I have maybe 2 business cases in here. We'll talk about efficiency and the opportunity where technology and efficiency work hand in hand, because all of these things, safety, service, and efficiency, they have to be aligned. They're not competing, they're aligned. And the technology that keeps that alignment on par will help the business. So efficiency from labor management, asset management, and ultimately process visibility. Are we winning or losing in real time? We need to know. So we'll share a couple technologies within that. All of this is to achieve advancements, not only in hardware, but we'll talk about some software improvements. But I wanted to level set. The technology playground is in safety, service, and efficiency. And this is the fun stuff. We're not going to hit all of these in super deep detail because we can spend an entire webinar on each of these technologies on its own. So we'll just chat about self-driving trucks, because if there's any question we get a lot around is automation. We'll talk about track and trace. Many of our customers want to know where their stuff is in real time and what time is it showing. So we'll talk about technology there. I think that's going to be a huge benefit from an LTO perspective in the next 5 years. We haven't calibrated our crystal balls this morning, so I want to start out by saying, we have no idea what the future will entail, but we do know that there's a lot of technology. There's a lot of innovation going on in these umbrella buckets that LTL is going to specifically benefit from. Alternative fuel vehicles, autonomous vehicles, safety technology, and lastly, dimensioners. Dimensioners, we only do 2 things in LTL. We sell space on our trailers, and we sell pace. Space and pace. What goes on the trailer and how fast we can get it to our customers. And if you do that, you need to know the dimensions. You need to know the volume of what you're putting into your assets. So we're going to also talk a little bit about software advances. And the software advances, this is going to be key. I don't know if this is true, but I heard Machiavelli. He said that he who holds information has power. I'm not sure if that's true, but what I will tell you, if it is, he would have loved data foundation and data science. This is where we separate capability from execution. Many organizations have data stacks, mainframes that we have to modernize from an LTL perspective, but data is your friend. So I want to chat about data science and what that evolution looks like, because if you have a good stack, good data science, you can optimize pickup and delivery optimization. We'll talk about dock optimization, and ultimately the largest spend in our business, line haul. In our organization alone, we drive 2.6 million miles a day. That's a lot of miles, and we want to ensure that when we're driving on those miles, we're doing it in the most meaningful, efficient way, and we're optimizing. And there's one case study where we're going to talk about how we optimize that just using simple data. So with that, new hardware technologies, and I love this part because if there's anything that keeps me up at night, it's what does the future look like 5 years from now, and how can we ensure we're on the cutting edge, right? We want to make sure we can ensure not only our LTL brethren in business can execute, we want to ensure that there's no technology that we're not tapping into that can give us a competitive advantage. But from a self-driving truck, this is my first calibrated crystal ball statement. I'm not sure if it'll be prototype, but I don't know if it'll be widespread use between now and 2025. There are a lot of major players in this space between self-driving trucks with Daimler, Volvo, Waymo. We put Daimler twice because we must like it a lot. Tesla, Aurora, there's a lot of players. But the self-driving trucks are likely to be used on some lanes. What we found as we talked to different departments of transportation, I've done a communication at the Department of Transportation around the future of autonomous vehicles. And what I find is that every single state may have a different timeline of approvals in this journey. So I would offer this. We may be able to do things like gateway capability in this work around platooning. That's where you put multiple vehicles together and potentially the first vehicle has a driver in it, the second or third potentially could have drivers, but it's not driving under that driver's power. It's connected electronically to the vehicles in front of it. So I think that may be an opportunity, and also interstate closed-loop pilots. You have states like Tennessee, states like Texas that are really supportive of this technology. And so they may be more apt to enable companies like ours to pilot this capability, doing closed-loop milk runs between locations. And the key here, I would say, is change management. Not only regulatory compliance, but getting people comfortable. As I drive down the street taking my 4-year-old to preschool, and you look over to your right, there's a driverless truck going by, in a Texas or a Tennessee or Washington. That change management is critical. So we need to bring the public on board. So I would say within the next 5 years, having those pilots, having those lanes of opportunity until we get to state approval, where then we can run a line haul across multiple states in connectedness, because we're a network business. We can't just drive in one state. So lots of great opportunity here, but I think that the jury's still out on how widespread it'll get to in the coming months. One of my favorites, and this is going to be interesting, this panel, we're going to ask at the end of the panel, we're going to ask a question around some opportunities. What's the North Star, right, from an LTL perspective? And I'll be really interested to hear from a group of really sharp individuals that lead in this industry and have been leading for years. What do you think about this? Because track and trace technology, I think, is one of the most critical linchpins in our business. We've heard around RFID technology. We know that's going to lead to how we label pallets, communicate where that pallet is, and communicate how we execute for that customer. I think RFID has been out there. There's active versus passive tags, and not to get too detailed, if it takes a battery so I can read it, or if it's active, if it's passive, that means I need to put equipment in our centers, in our SIC locations that can have antennas to read a tag in real time. So then the tags have to have RFID chips or things like that. So long story short, I think there's a lot in RFID. I think there's a lot in low energy Bluetooth. That means battery capability that will enable us to read using the technology and equipment we've already purchased to read where our pallets are in X, Y, and Z coordinates. Here's where I land on this one. I think that there's going to be companies that come up with a software as a service offering that will enable us to tag, label, and read where our product is, and they'll sell that information as a service. So imagine a time where the tags are free. Let's imagine a time where the tags are 20 cents or 10 cents. Right? And then you can just buy, I'll sell you the tag at pickup, and I can sell you the information at delivery. Or I can sell you the information every step along the way if somebody wants to read where their pallet is driving down the freeway. I think that this technology is critical because the challenge is infrastructure to do RFID is very costly. $100 million if you do a large location, large companies across multiple locations. Or maybe it's something like this, where you just pay to play. I think that solving this technology will be the key to unlocking supply chain optimization for LTL in the coming years. but I think it's one of the most exciting. Alternative fuels will become really popular. Organizations are talking about how to reduce the carbon footprint, becoming carbon neutral. Today, Tesla's doing their battery day, right? I think that electric fleets are something that a lot of people are going to be excited about in the industry. I think it was John Goodenough. He's, 98 years old? He invented the lithium-ion battery. Yeah, but now that technology is now evolving. I think that making the lithium-ion battery more stable, I think it was Maria Braga out of the University of Austin who came up with a better way, a more stable battery, a more stable charging. I think that potentially that may be some news that we hear coming out of Battery Day today. How can we take an electrification to the next level? That's going to be critical if we talk about going green. How can we reduce our carbon footprint? But how can we do it cost effectively, right? Hybrid fuel vehicle options are good. Natural gas, it takes a lot of infrastructure, right? Natural gas filling stations. And I'm going to go back to platooning technology. If you want to improve your carbon footprint, your miles per gallon, I think there's opportunity there, potentially as we look at the electrification of our industry and the changes that are going to come in the next 5 years. This is going to be critical. And if we do this Ravi, so we're going to do this every quarter or every year. When we come back, I guarantee you in 5 years from now, we'll pull this slide up and we'll see that maybe Maria Braga came up with a new electric battery that goes 1 million miles, that charges rapidly, that's using glass, more stable, not heat, doesn't explode, right? Like those types of things work in the cold. Once we solve that problem, you'll have the same group of leaders on this call talking about electric or alternative fuels is the way to go. But we got work to do. And the last thing I'll share on this emerging technology is autonomous vehicles. If you've been out to an LTL dock, which many of us have been born and raised in LTL, it's a lot going on. We are in our facilities day in and day out, validating how our processes are, but you're moving right, you're moving left. So autonomous vehicles are going to be an interesting one because I think that there are 2 of the 7 steps to full automation. Autonomous forklifts, we've seen them with Otto, we've seen Toyota looking at this. Autonomous forklifts are key, but how do you program it? How do you use data and optimization to direct where those forklifts go? And I've also seen autonomous pallet moving, what we call AGVs theoretically, and these have been around for years, right? We had them at Coca-Cola with our automated facilities in Louisiana. You see them in automotive. We got these in automotive. I started on automotive well before my 17 years in supply chain as an engineer doing AGVs, moving engines for Mercedes. So I think that this is going to help LTL. This is one of those linchpin capabilities that are going to drive. But there's 7 full steps to automation and optimization in LTL, and these are only 2 to 3. I think the technology is going to get close, and we're going to wind up piloting some of these as an industry, but this is some exciting stuff. And the last capability that we talk about in hardware is this. Many of us went through the ELD mandate, and I had the pleasure of working with 2 great teams going through ELD mandate execution at FedEx LTL as well as XPO LTL. Taking technology and taking advantage of an ELD mandate and putting the best technology in our trailers and tractors, making them safer. Now we have collision mitigation in trailers. We have tractors. We have hard brake alerts. We have driver attention technology. We have driver-facing cameras, driver-forward cameras, safety alert, event log. We got everything. So here's my question. I would love to ask this question. I don't think we put it, Ravi, to this panel. I would love to ask all of our attendees, are we now safer because of technology? Here's the challenge, and here's what I would call for all of our early adopters under the theory of diffusion of technology. They're always early adopters, and I'm telling you, I'm an early adopter. But what I would say for all of our early adopters, we need to make sure that the technology we roll out, the technology we put into the tractors, trailers, into the hand of our dock workers, we need to make sure that we do it in a kind way, number one, but we do it in understanding change management, because this chart was eye-opening for me, that now multiple companies have rolled out ELD, put all kinds of technology in all of our tractors and trailers, and if we look at, crashes for large trucks, involved over the years, we're going up. So I would argue that we still have work to do, ensuring that the technology we drive, I love it, we can vote, the technology that we drive, we want to ensure that we're doing it in a smarter way, and we're not distracting our drivers. We're not distracting our teams. We're combining, so you don't get into a cab and you have an ELD here, a tablet here, and you rest assured they have cell phones. A cell phone here, that we're smart about how we commingle technology to get the optimum benefit. Because technology for technology's sake does not save money or save lives. Technology implemented well transforms our industry. So, one last thing, and this was one of my favorite technologies from a dimension perspective. I said at the beginning, we only sell two things: space on a tractor or trailer, and pace, how fast we go. I think LTL has dabbled in dimensioners. There's static dimensioners. There's dimension in motion. There's stop and go dimension technology. I think solving this question and solving this technology to ensure we can use cube data in the future to have better pricing, better costing models, and better execution, and better capacity on how we drive our customers is going to be huge. I think the jury's still out on what technology will reign. I think between mobile technology and stop and go technology, it's going to change so much in the next 36 months. But from an LTL industry, we need to embrace this, because this can drive from being on a tariff-based process that's so confusing and customers are finding it difficult to deal with us, to being on a simple dim and distance-based tariff plan. Make it easier for customers to do business with us is key, and I think this is one of those technologies that will enable that to happen. So the jury's still out because multiple LTL providers are using multiple technologies. But I'll tell you, it's fun. It's fun, and it's going to change in 36 months. So, Robbie, this is another one that I would say we should come back and see where we are, definitely in the next 3 years. So last thing, so we talked about all the fun stuff. This is the hardware. What are we putting in the hands of drivers? What's in our trucks? But software is key. Software, companies believe that if you look at software, how we evolve, how we look at our technology, our infrastructure, architecture. I think we talked to a number of different leaders in multiple different companies. I think that there's about 3 to 5% improvement that can come out of better software technology. Many companies have, and my hat goes off to organizations like ours. We've improved operating ratio 16 of the last 19 quarters in LTL. Like that history of execution is huge. But to be in this conversation in the next 16 quarters, we're going to have to embrace technology, software, transformation, and execution, because better software technology can enable you to do better pickup and delivery, increasing your stops per route, and decreasing your miles per stop, being able to do dynamic optimization. Quite simply, we want to push the easy button. That's what data and technology can do for you. I'm taking that into line haul optimization, running multiple optimization models, and we'll share one, what we call a case study around using data to drive this. It'll be a quick 2-second case study, but it's transformational. We want to increase load factor, reduce empty miles, and optimize the network. I already mentioned we drive 2.6 million miles a day on average for a network like ours. And if you take out 300,000 miles and still deliver the same amount of freight, but you're optimizing how you can go and where you go, that can be a game changer for our business. And then ultimately docking yard. The docking yard optimization, it's usually probably the third largest cost, but labor is one of the largest costs in LTL. And we call it the Goldilocks thing, right? How can you use technology and information to pick what I call the optimum manpower? Not too much, right? But you need to be able to manage through peaks and valleys because they come every year, but not too little. So when change happens and you do take on that new customer, you do take on that mix, you do get dynamic with pricing or what have you, you can handle the upswing. And the last two things in this one is performance visibility and reward recognition. It's not only important to be able to know if you're walking out as a supervisor in LTL, somebody's birthday, right, or somebody's anniversary, congratulations, but you also need to know if we're winning or losing ahead or behind. How are we performing? How are we executing? Technology and software is going to get us there in the next 5 years. But LTL needs technology and leadership commitment, but ultimately change management to get 3 to 5%. It's not going to happen on its own, and it's not going to be, one app, one change. It's a journey. So I put this out here, and Ravi, you and I had a conversation probably 3 months ago around kind of data. We were talking about data and how do you embrace. And it's one story, and now I'm going to summarize this conversation up around how do we engage the savings for LTL. It starts with data foundation. Let data be your friend. The data foundation, many companies have decades-old legacy systems, mainframes. It's really difficult, but embrace data science. We have some of the best OR data scientists, and some of them, like Charlie Rosa, who works on our team here at XPO, and Eric, and I have some across all the LTL industry, not just in ours, that are taking data and making magic things happen. Because I think data as a foundation drives to what we call automation. It doesn't have to start with optimization tomorrow. But how do you take simple things like, I have all my customer data, I've delivered to all those customers, how can I take that and use AI to just create standard doc appointments, understanding that flow, optimize P&D. So it all starts with data. Make data your friend, walk away from those spreadsheets, and let's get into some real optimization. We need to ensure every step of the way of this journey that we drive excellent ROI. And I believe that every step, when you improve your data foundation, your architecture, that's money. That's a lot of money. When you look at data science and you make a commitment, and I think LTL, we are making a commitment to smarter data science. This is not the LTL from 15 or 20 years ago where we did everything in spreadsheets. We're now taking it to the next level where we're automating simple things. Like how do you automate staffing when volume is fairly consistent year in and year out, give or take, customer mix changes. And then lastly, how can we take our business like Parcel took their business, and Jack, I saw your TED Talk where you talked about optimization and you talked about the complexities of change management. That was awesome. Our SVP sent that YouTube video to everybody to say, how can we now look at optimization in the future? Because I think that there's an easy button that we're not pushing that we're going to have access to. So I really wanted to take some time to talk about a little bit of hardware and software, and then I'm going to share this information back with Ravi around these data foundations. But I wanted to talk a lot about hardware and software in this journey because we're on it together, and I think LTL is just right for changing the industry. Ravi?
So as Nate mentioned, optimization will be a journey. There is a big reward. We expect that through optimization, through better asset utilization, we can reduce costs by 3 to 5%. It has to be a journey. We have to start with the data, build the data foundations, use data science in order to do some predictive analytics, then start automating processes, and then you optimize your operations. It is going to be a journey, but it starts with the data. In LTL operation, where the data starts, it starts when you receive the shipment from a customer. So when a customer gives you the shipment, there is a document called bill of lading. And this bill of lading describes the attributes of the shipment, the volume, weight, all the information, and that is done at the time of pickup. And this as Nate mentioned, that you sell space and pace. So what space is needed is encapsulated in the bill of lading. Currently, there are many formats in which the bill of lading is given, and there's no electronic, automated way of taking this data from a shipper into LTL company's platform. And that is one of the biggest challenges. Often the information doesn't come correctly or comes rather late. So LTL companies cannot plan ahead of time. At the time of pickup, they want the ability to predict all the way through the line haul operation, how much space we need, how many tractors need, how many trailers we need, what drivers I need. They cannot do the planning until they have very good visibility of the space needed by the customer. So I would say that this is one of the biggest pain points which LTL companies are facing, that how can I bring this data electronically as soon as possible at the time of pickup or even before pickup into my system so that I can do the planning. There's a fair amount of work going on in the industry through optical character recognition, that you can take a picture of just the bill of lading, and all the data is automatically incorporated, is understood, and goes into the database. So there is a fair amount of work happening, and we expect that in the next 5 years, this science will mature, and people will start using electronic bill of lading. Nate already spoke about the dimensional data. Dimensional data is absolutely critical, because when you're selling space, you need to know how much space is needed by a shipment. And these days, vehicles are constrained by volume, not by the weight. And right now, all the pricing is done using weight. The capacity planning is done using weight. The number of trailer I need to move the freight is done using weight, because dimension data is not available. As Nate mentioned, dimension data would come, the accurate data will come, and all this entire planning will start taking place using volume and the pricing as well. Now, if I look around, I see that I would say more than 50% of the companies are still using AS400. And as we are talking about data foundations, data science, automation, optimization, it will be very hard for you to do on those foundations which cannot support. We have realized, we have worked with several companies with AS400 databases, and we have realized that integration with these AS400 based technologies is very, very hard. So I think that companies should seriously consider about replacing their AS400 system by some modern architecture using Oracle, SQL Server, or other databases. And unless they are able to do so, they won't have the right database foundations. I'm seeing that many companies have undertaken the data transformation processes, and they have started making much progress in this area, but it's a very expensive process. Question is that, can we sort of build a sort of a product in this area so that it is much more affordable from cost point of view and from risk point of view for LTL carriers? But this is absolutely essential, that we think about retiring AS400 systems by modern architecture-based systems. Now, once you have the data, now you have to start seeing that what our next step should be. Once you have the data, the next step would be that to give visibility of the data to all the stakeholders. We start with the shipment. They're selling space, space is shipment. So when you're moving shipment from A to B, give the visibility of the shipment all across. You should be able to see how the shipment moves across the network. You should be able to predict how the shipment journey looks like into the future, because the shipment movement will determine how many trailers you need, how many tractors you need, how many drivers you need. So prediction of the shipment movement throughout the network is extremely important. And we are seeing that there are some companies coming in this space which are offering shipment visibility as a SaaS platform. So we believe that these technologies will become popular, and shipment visibility would become available as a SaaS service in the years to come. I mentioned about the ETA in the past slide. Now, ETA prediction is very important, because I have seen that this capability does not exist at this point in time, and because of that, operations are very reactive instead of being proactive. When a shipment is picked up for a national carrier, let's say in California, and suppose it is coming to Georgia, then I know that using my plan, I should be able to my line haul plan, I should be able to determine that when the shipment would reach at what point, at what relay location or break block location, so that I can do the planning. So I should be able to predict the shipment movement all across the network, the moment it is picked up. That capability does not exist. This technology is not that difficult. Using machine learning, using the concept of a time-space network, I should be able to predict the movement of the shipment across my network and give visibility so that all the terminals where the shipment would be passing through can do appropriate planning. Now, the benefit of this technology would be that if I have advanced visibility of the shipment, I can do a proper driver planning, I can do resource planning, I can do city delivery planning as well. And it will become much more proactive instead of being reactive. I would like to take a break here and request Nate for a minute to describe a case study, which is an excellent example of data science to dock operations. Nate?
Perfect. Hey, so Ravi, this was an interesting one, and when we talk about data, what I wanted to use is a real example of how you take data and use data to improve simple things like productivity and execution. And many of you know through our CEO communicated, we have something called a smart proprietary technology. And essentially what this is a system across all of our different functions within XPO, but in LTL specifically, we use this technology to pull in this data that we had for years, right? We knew how many pallets. We used 14,000 handheld devices scanning every single shipment that come in our business. So when we scan the shipment, we can see every single associate. They're clocked into a dock or driving. We can see how long it took them to clock in from the dock to clock in to scan the first pallet, as an example. We can see what time they went on break. We see so much information. So all of this stored shipment scan data, we said, aha. We worked with our internal IT teams, and they came up with a great solution that started in supply chain. And we took all of that information, data analytics, number of shipments moved, hours worked by dock workers, and we put that information into one simple format. First, we put it on a dashboard on the dock where we can see here's how a shift is ranking from a performance perspective. And then we took it from a dock to a system. In a system, so now you can see in real time across multiple shifts who's clocked into what are they doing. And that was one of the most transformational, simple things you do with data, because it's not even optimization yet, right? So doing simple things like raising an alert when a dock worker hasn't scanned or a partner hasn't scanned something in, 15 to 20 minutes when it's clearly, maybe 500 people or across a location, 100 people on a dock, you can't see everybody. But creating data in real time to determine if you're winning or losing was a critical opportunity for, I think, not only us in LTL, but many LTL providers. Not being afraid of data. Because one question we got when we did this initial study was, man, what do people say when they see how they're doing? Because we took that information and put it directly on a handheld so people can see when they're moving that you're executing above your standards. You're number 1 of 8, and congratulations, it turns green. And it turns out that it was one of the best gamification things that we had saw, where you think that, man, it could go one or two ways, and it went positive. We saw about 5 to 20% improvement in some locations, and not ramping up. It was almost overnight when you put the right technology and the right change management in people's hands. And now we're just growing that capability to full staffing execution. But it's just one case study on data we use every day in LTO, how to make it work for us, and how to improve performance today for tomorrow.
Thank you, Ned.
But one thing I wanted to say on this one, is if we look at, here's my one mantra, and with any OR team and with any data scientist team, give the visibility of the data to all stakeholders. I was on one of our docks just before COVID hit. I was in Atlanta, and I was talking to probably one of our best dock workers in the business. He was Jordan, because on his handheld, he was number 1 in execution. He saw how he's been doing for the past month. It was 2 months after we rolled out our proprietary smart technology, and he said to me that I like to make sure that I deliver the best service for my zone and my customer. He said, and now everybody knows that I deliver the best service in the zone for my customer. So giving visibility of data to all stakeholders is huge. Derive insights from that data, and then create actionable items. So we've now taken that data where now I'm Jordan on the dock. I know that I'm executing flawlessly. I know that I'm executing with the highest level of quality. But ultimately, now how can I make it even more actionable? Not only how am I doing right now, what other opportunities are out there, right? How do we use that to become more dynamic? So data is critical. So I wanted to share that because it's an evolution. But step 1, share the data. Let's not hoard the data and make it meaningful.
Thank you, Nate. The next topic I want to talk about is automation and optimization. And I'm going to touch 3 important topics where LTL carriers spend the most amount of money, P&D, dock, and line haul. we have seen, we are building a solution in the LTL and the P&D space, and we have done some studies. We have seen that one can reduce P&D costs by up to 5% through optimization if you adopt certain principles. Currently, most LTL companies are doing zip code-based routing in case they are flexible about that. And if they allow routing to be done dynamically on each day, depending upon the density, then the number of routes can be significantly reduced. So we'll see that in the next 5 years from now, zip code routing will become a lot more prevalent than it is right now. We're also seeing that currently the route sequencing does not take into account the real-time traffic and road conditions, but now the technology is available where real-time data feed can be brought to solutions. So we are seeing that this real-time traffic data, road conditions will come into software, and when you do the dynamic routing of the drivers on the road for pickup and delivery, then this information will be factored in. We're also seeing that for LTL companies, dispatching is mostly manual. We see that there are lots of trucks moving on the road ready for pickup shipments. And whenever a new pickup request comes, then some dispatcher has to decide. And we have seen that there are limitations to that. If a person is doing the optimization, then the person is limited by one's optimization capabilities. But if machine is doing it and the machine is enumerating lots of options, then the machine can do a lot better job. Currently, if you look at this pickup and dispatching, it is very decentralized. If a large company has hundreds of terminals, then each terminal has certain dispatchers and the planners which do all the planning. And we have seen that there's significant interest in LTL carriers to build a central dispatch system related to P&D so that all the inbound planning, all the dispatching, all the pickup operations are managed centrally. So you can put some persons with a specialized skill set, train them in this area, which will be a lot easier to train than training hundreds of persons. And we will see that through that, you would be able to reduce the manpower needed for planning and dispatching, and you would be able to improve the quality of service as well. About the docks as well, I've seen that the docks are pretty much, again, same way. They're currently managed manually. And how you place the, how you bring the trailers to a dock has a significant impact on the manpower resources. As you see that in a dock, docks are where inbound shipments go from inbound trailer to outbound trailers. And there's a fair amount of manual labor which move the shipment from inbound to the outbound side. So depending upon where you place a new trailer, significantly impacts the time it takes. Generally, there's a loaded move followed by an empty move until the trailer is empty. Suppose that a trailer has inbound shipment which are going onto the trailer, which is on the far end of the terminal, then you'll see that there's a fair amount of travel cost, fair amount of time involved. But in case you bring the trailer to a closer location, you would be able to reduce the time. So we see that there's a significant opportunity for us to reduce the dock operating cost, the dock manpower resources needed, in case we are able to dynamically decide where the trailers will be placed in order to minimize the total time it takes for shipment to move from inbound trailer to outbound trailer. We also see that currently the manpower resources which you need to manage the dock operations, they are not a function of the shipment that arrive on a particular day. Once you have done a planning of the shipment movement, you can also do the resource planning accordingly. So line haul optimization is another area where we see. And so that's an area where I've done a fair amount of work in the past. It was not very successful because we don't have the right data. I think that once we have the good access to the bill of lading data, the moment a shipment is picked up, and we have a good understanding of its characteristics, volume, and weight, and this data is brought to the line haul system, then different terminals can do a really good planning. Each terminal has to decide on each particular day, mostly in the evening, that for all the shipment which are arriving at the terminal from the city delivery, how they should be moved on, how many trailers to make, what is the destination of those trailers, how the driver assignment is going to be. And for a breakback location, there are a lot of inbound trailer, how the inbound trailer plus the city delivery, how they should be combined together. So this kind of decision making is currently done manually. They do a fine job 80-90% of the time, but I believe that there's a 10 to 20% improvements can be made on a daily basis, and better decisions can be done. However, we can undertake this exercise only when the correct data is available to our solutions. So we see that as over the years, our data feeds will start maturing, and the good data would become available in a timely manner. We believe that line haul optimization can be done dynamically, and line haul costs can be significantly reduced. We believe that 2 to 4% reduction in cost is possible in case we are able to do the dynamic line haul optimization well. And there is a case study which Nate described to me. I do not think I have the time for that. We are running out of time. He mentioned that he told me that through some bypass opportunities on a daily basis, he was able to, XPO was able to reduce 50,000 miles on a daily basis, which is quite a significant achievement. It was an example of a dynamic line haul optimization done on a daily basis. Now I want to go to the next section, how to prepare for the future. I'm running a little bit time, so I would not spend more than a few minutes on it. How to prepare for the future. Here, you may be wondering that, yes, all sounds good. Visibility, data foundation, intelligence, automation, optimization, they all sounds good. How much is going to cost us? Maybe I will just wait and for new systems will become available, affordable, and then I will do something about it. I think that LTL companies can do a little bit better than that. This is my favorite quote. The best way to predict the future is to invent it. I request LTL companies, and we have many leaders present here, to be somewhat proactive and help us reinvent the future. And instead of waiting for the future to unfold, maybe you should be proactive and create a future where everybody is a winner. So how to make that happen? I put together some thought for you to consider, and I will take feedback from our panel members in the panel session. So as we have seen, as is mentioned by Nate and myself, that we need innovations on many fronts. We need innovations on the hardware front. We need innovations on the software front. Is it possible for each LTL carrier to do these innovations on their own? We know that LTL companies, we have some very large and some are very small. Those who are very large, they perhaps have the deep pockets to do it. But again, it's a very expensive. If you want to build a dynamic line haul optimization system for a large carrier, it may cost you tens of millions of dollars. Does it give me sufficient ROI? So is it possible, that instead of doing these innovations on our own, can we do this innovation through a community-supported platform? That's my question. How can we do so? Suppose that a new technology is coming, RFID technology, dimensioners, autonomous vehicles. Suppose you want to prototype these technologies. Suppose you want to see this technology has been built for other industries. How to adapt it for LTL industries? Is it possible that several companies can get together and pool some resources? This is a new technology. It's everybody's going to use it. There's no competitive advantage. I don't have a secret sauce which I can use because it's a platform. Can I fund a study? Multiple companies working together. Suppose that I need, say, $100,000 for that. Can 6 companies pool resources? Everyone contributes 1/6 of that, and this result of these studies are shared by everybody. I would say that with the same amount of money, you can do these 6 kind of studies, and every company which has funded it actually benefits from it. Is this opportunity would be reasonable to be considered by our leaders which are present in this meeting? We can actually take this step another further. We can go into the area of software as well. We know that each company has its own homegrown system. They have their secret sauce. Their secret sauce, as I've seen, working with the companies, is only 10 to 20% of the whole thing. But 80-90% is pretty much the same for everyone. So let us go to the base, So maybe a large part of their operations are standard. Everybody knows that because the same people move from one company to the other company. So can we build a base product in a community-funded open source environment? Is it possible that 10 companies contribute some money, we pool all the resources, all the money, and build a software product, base product, and give it to every company which has funded it? Everybody gets 100% of the source code and the ability to customize it. And once they have the source code, they can add their secret sauce, add their own ingredients, and adapt it for them. In this case, the advantage is that they get 80-90% of the technology, which is industry-wide, at actually 10% of the cost. Will this kind of option be viable for our LTL carriers? What are the benefits? So the benefits of this approach would be that we are able to reduce the cost of innovation. It is too expensive. Companies, even large companies, cannot afford because the cost of it. But if it is shared, then it becomes a lot more affordable. And for the same initiative, we get a greater pool of funding. We create a better product. You're not losing anything because you get the base product, and then you can adopt it and customize for a need. Another advantage is that right now there are no standards. Every company is doing their own things. But if many companies start pulling resources together, they can develop industry standards. And we can come with an arrangement. There's no long-term commitment, basically pay on the go model, project by project model. So therefore, so that you're not really, committing for a long term and you're not stuck with that. Something for you to consider. So this completes our presentation. I'm running about 5 minutes behind, but we'll try to catch up. So now we move to the next topic of panel discussion. So we have 5 panel members: Webb Estes, who is VP of Process Improvement at Estes Express; Jack Levis, who spent over 40 years at UPS and was involved in pickup and delivery and other applications; Charlie Prickett, he is the CEO of AAA Cooper; Patrick Sugar, VP of Line Haul Engineering at Saia; and Scott Ware, Chief Network Officer at YRC Worldwide. So the way we are going to conduct this session would be that we were going to ask, so there are the 4 questions you have identified, and we'll request each panel member to spend about 5 minutes describing their answers to these questions. What are the biggest opportunities you see for LTL from now until 2025? What are the biggest barriers? How to overcome those? And if you're the captain of the ship of LTL industry, what is your day one North Star would be? And in the last few slides, I mentioned about the community-funded innovations, open source solution. What do you think about that? Okay, I'll stop sharing, and we would request maybe one by one let us go in the same order in which let us start with Webb.
I was worried I'd either go first or last, so I'll take first.
Okay.
And Nate, great job. I love your space and pace. That's a great lingo. So the biggest opportunity, if I'll take the first question, I think it's the driver shortage. And I know that could also be a barrier, but what we see with the drug clearinghouse that's happening this year, just more and more people less interested in taking to the road. I see the driver shortage being a significant challenge, but also opportunity. And so, Ravi, one of the things you talked about is the optimization in line haul, how we can, you said 2 to 4%. I mean, we run over 500 million miles a year. So those small percentages wind up being significant dollars. So being able to maximize the loads would be one of the biggest opportunities we're shooting for at Estes over the next 5 years. But as far as barriers to that, one of the challenges with any data or automation is you can make a lot of assumptions, and those assumptions don't always play out when it comes to the final load. So for example, you think you know the space of a shipment, and you find out later it's 16 feet long, and now you've optimized your whole plan for the night, and that 16-foot skid just doesn't fit on the trailer anymore, right? And so trying to find ways to optimize while also recognizing that there's an art to it is definitely one of the barriers. I think the other barrier is not even getting the information timely enough. So we'll get calls from customers at 3 o'clock requesting a pickup for the same day. And at some point you run out of time in optimizing for that night. So getting more timely information is definitely one of the big barriers, and even dimensioning. Nate, I know you talked about dimensioners. We have them, so do all the LTL companies. The problem is when you're trying to optimize your plan, you don't know what the dimensions are at that time. So, if I had a crystal ball, I'd love for customers across the LTL industry to have their own dimensioners, to have their own information where they could supply that to us, and it gets you out of the disagreements afterwards about what the cost was and all of those complications. So that's definitely a barrier that we face today, is getting that information. And honestly, even knowing what time the pickup is. If they call us at 3, boy, it'd be really nice if they could call us at 2 o'clock for the pickup. So if I had a North Star, it would definitely be the cleaning up of the bill of lading process. I know we're working on that. There's kind of a whole group of LTL carriers that are trying to prioritize and make one North Star of what we want that bill of lading integration to look like, so we can all build to it and our customers can know what to build. Last question, Ravi, you asked about pooling resources. I'm game. I think it's easier said than done. And I guess one question is, who's the one that builds it, right? And does Optym get to build it, right? And what does that look like? And who owns it afterwards? And what's vanilla for one company may not be vanilla for another company. So a lot of complexities there, but I'd be happy to sit at the table with the group and at least talk about those things.
Okay.
So I think I did it in 3.5 minutes. So let's go to the next.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker would be Jack Levis.
Great question. I'd start and look at, what's the future to 2025. Look at Nate's presentation. I think Nate hit it right on the nose. But let me summarize more discreetly. Nate had a slide that said safety, service, and efficiency. In my mind, the future of trucking is the word "and." That you don't come to me and say, do you want it there on time, or do you want me to reduce cost? Yes. Do you want me to be safe, or do you want me to have lower cost and profits? Yes. Our job is "and." We're going to do all of those things. I know you're throwing out a number of 2 to 4%. That's too little. Based on what I have seen, that is a chip shot, and chances are you don't know because you haven't optimized yet. So you're putting your thumb in the air. But I've seen this. I believe strongly that what we do to reduce costs, to get that 2 to 4% or whatever it is, those exact same things allow us to be more flexible in these days of COVID. From my experience, you have 2 or 3 seasons. You have a way I operate, the first quarter, and then I got the summer doldrums, and then you kind of migrate to Christmas, which was crazy. Now Christmas is every day of the year. That's the future. The things we do to be more effective are the exact same things that we do to turn on a dime with COVID. It's the same thing. How do I provide each customer feeling like they're the only ones we have? They can turn on a dime, they can have special requests, and we can do it efficiency. So it's still "and." We're all biased by our experiences. So I'm biased by what I saw when I was at UPS. We reduced 185 million miles driven. So it's nice to say, here's what can be done. Here's what I believe are the 4 things we need to do to make this efficient, to do what we just threw out that where we want to be. 1, we need data, and we need high definition data. Not data that says what's already happened. We have to realize tracking and tracing is 1990s technology. We need to know where things are headed tomorrow, not where they've been. Unless tomorrow's like yesterday, that's not that helpful. There's benefit. We need to get to predicting and optimizing. So high definition data is number 1. That's got to be the number 1 thing we do. Then we need some good operations technology to let the frontline user view the data, interact with the data, plan with the data. Then you take on top of that data infrastructure, we put advanced optimizations on top of it. That's where the 185 million miles comes from. I think we're more, what I've seen, it's more like 6 to 12% of what you can get, but only if you do the fourth thing. And the fourth thing is that we need leadership and we need to understand change management. Otherwise, you're a flavor of the month. You come in with some new tools, people say, hey, that's nice. And when you leave, they go back to their old ways. Change their conversations. Listen to what they're talking about in the morning and change their conversations. It could be with new metrics. It could be with new things we look at, whatever, but change what they're talking about. People are competitive. And when they start seeing somebody else is doing great, they want to do great too. So those are the 4 things we need in order to truly move that far. You know, you mentioned the North Star. What I would do is I would say we are no longer a company that is a trucking company that happens to have data and technology. Change everybody's mindset and say we're a data and technology company that happens to have trucks. And I'd be focusing on data and technology. I'd be looking at new metrics that says, just is our data accurate? You already mentioned it, Ravi. What good is it to say, I found a home to move some goods across country to find out the data's wrong and those trailers are not empty or there's no room on the trailers? Focus on data, focus on technology, spend all your effort there, and then you can put the tools on top of it. So that's where I would go. I've seen it, I know it works. We just need to have that as our North Star and start saying we are data and technology. This is, the old days are gone of seat of the pants decision making. We're gonna let data and technology drive that. And I'm done, thank you.
I would like to get,
give me too much time to think about stuff.
I would like to get your feedback about the question as well. Are you in support of a community funded innovations?
I think that what we need, I don't know if I am because as much as others, because I came from the company that had the pockets to make that a competitive advantage. So, but I do believe everybody needs a data infrastructure. I do believe that shared data across everybody, a data standard that everybody adheres to, will move the entire industry ahead. Then maybe each company can decide whether they're going to have their own technology to interact with it. It would certainly help the others. But there's, you know, this point of, am I going to be a capitalist and want to think of just my company, or am I going to think of the group as a whole? You know, we in the late 1990s, we started investing in data. You know, the companies that have done that, like XPO, maybe don't want to give up that competitive advantage.
Thank you, Jeff. Wonderful answers. So Charlie, would you like to share your thoughts with us?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, appreciate the time today and the insight from everybody who spoke so far. I'll try not to be redundant. A lot of good ideas, a lot of good concepts and initiatives. On the question, you know, the biggest opportunities. A few years ago, we started I'd call it a re-engineering, reprocessing process, and we took a advice from Stephen Covey, and that's begin with the end in mind. What do we want to create? And we reversed engineered back to what we have today. And so with the end in mind, the customer ultimately, and that interaction with the customer is what's at the heart of everything we're doing. And so when we re-engineered, it was obvious that most of what we had done from a technology standpoint was internally focused, process focused. So we really went out of our way to create a continuous stream of data and a continuous stream of visibility, both internally and externally, both for our operating planning, how we make our decisions operationally, how we plan, predict. And that same technology we spun off into what we launched last year, which is Action Track, which provides our customers a continuous visibility of flow of shipments. And this is real-time ETAs, real-time updating, and it's absolute complete visibility from pickup to delivery. And we've been very, very successful at that, but it's very much in line with what we're talking about today, and that's that customer is now informed, transparency. And so our internal development really facilitated that for us and had great success with it. Customers have loved it, and it gives them the ability to predict in a very real way when they can expect the shipment, exactly when it's going to arrive. We're usually within 3 to 5 minutes of ETA arrival on delivery, and 3 to 5 minutes on arrival from hub to hub, or whatever combination of arrival that's existing. So the engineering that we did, the reprocessing that we did, has spun that all for us, and it's been quite successful. To enhance that, we talked about customers and the interaction. So coming soon, we're introducing the pre-pickup visibility, which is somewhat abstract, but it will give those customers who are interested in the status of the pickup driver and what's about to happen, and they can plan their dock, their shipping and organization of their day. So same technology base, same technology process, re-engineering from the end in mind. And customers would like to know what's going on with that gap from the moment of call in for pickup, whether it's via Webb or EDI or whatever method they use, where they've got a sense of what's going on in that pickup action and when it's going to happen and what the ETA of the pickup driver is going to be. This is all prior to the shipment being transacted and entered into the systems. So we've developed this, and we begin with the end in mind. There's a lot of opportunities from the safety and the technology. We have in-cab cameras. We're invested heavily in the collision mitigation systems and all that, the emerging technology. So we're very big fans of that. Those are great opportunities. But we kind of narrow it down to really, you got to get that customer and understand that customers need to use that intelligence and develop that out. Yes.
So Charlie, I have 1 more minute. So what will be your North Star? Number one, and second, about the community supported development. What do you think about that?
It's interesting. Probably wouldn't be that excited about it. To be honest, it's an interesting concept, and knowing all the carriers are all very, very good carriers on this call, and certainly the ones that aren't are very, very good as well. I think it could be challenging to create a platform that would serve that up when we have so many different approaches to how we approach the business, how we serve up customers, and what is our uniqueness. So I think it's something that's certainly worth exploring, but it's not what it would be on our priority list.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, thank you, Charlie. So Patrick, would like to share a few words with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and appreciate the invite today, and Nate and Ravi, both great stuff, and the rest of the panelists too. I'll try to kind of speed us up and get us back on track a little bit and not repeat some of the things that have been said. But when we talk about the biggest opportunities, the industry is really looked at a lot at data as what is data availability and how do I get more and more data and less on how do I use that data effectively. So when I think of the biggest opportunities and what we're trying to do to kind of bring us to the next level, it's all around taking data that exists today in streams, and rather than investing in more different streams of information, let's invest in making that data actionable. You heard Nate talk about kind of work standards on the dock and being able to take this massive pool of data and present it in a format that allowed for productivity gains. And that path exists in so many different channels. When we think of the industry, we make millions of manual decisions a day. And a lot of this big, large reaching technology is what everyone talks about. But if we can just make each one of these millions of decisions a little bit better, a little bit at a time along the way, we can find some massive gains. And so I think that those are the two major opportunities here. And when we talk about change management, you heard Jack kind of mention that as number 4, is all about change management. We have a lot of tenure in this industry, and there's a lot of great ideas. However, we got to be sure that when we're bringing technology to the front line and we're bringing it to our leaders, we don't bring the most optimal solution. We bring the most optimal solution that will be accepted. And I think that is so huge for us to lean on, for us at Saia, the Paul Pecks of the world and the Jeff Owens of the world that have been around the industry for 30, 40 years. These are the people that are going to help us show what can we wrap technology around a lot of great knowledge base and be able to capitalize on it. So from the North Star basis, and then I'll answer the Ravi final question, number 4 here. From a North Star, if you kind of ask me that question, I think the North Star guidance would be, there's some cool stuff we're talking about. Nate mentioned kind of dimension-based pricing, RFID technology. These are some of these things we're going to have to work on together. Some of these things are initiatives and less to me potentially on a self-funded software side, being always the fit. but we're going to have to bring our customers along on this journey. Our customers get on a website and expect a spot quote to be good for a week. They don't get on Delta or Southwest Airlines and expect for that quote to be good for a period of time. And so we have the opportunity to bring our customers along this journey well with us and make sure that our customers, and some of that change management is done both internally and externally, so that when the data is available and when we're able to get it to that point of optimization, we have the customers and our teams as well, internally and externally, at the point that that change management is set up. I kind of answer your question number 4 with that. I think there's places that maybe it works. I'm on the opposite side of the coin of Jack. However, I think that there are portions of it that we feel comfortable with, and there's a need for big data sharing, and that I think we can all agree with. But once you start talking about development, I think it gets a little bit sticky. But I think that from the standpoint of, are we willing to kind of share some of that IP for the betterment of the entire group? Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. Thanks a lot. Scott, would you like to share your thoughts with us?
Well, I guess I'm bringing us to the wrap here, Ravi. You'll save the best for last. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Yes, indeed. Exactly.
Actually, I've heard, thanks again for having me be a part of this panel group. Certainly enlightening, engaging, and you cover a lot of great information. And you and Nate did an awesome job of setting it up in terms of what are the real opportunities for us in the future. But I don't want to be redundant either. As Charlie said, I heard a lot of good things stated by everyone here, and I can't find a thing I wouldn't agree with. I will tell you this. One of the biggest challenges we have, or opportunities, is narrowing that gap between what I'll call predictive and the real-time world. Because as we get more real-time information and as we look at the data, we want to be able to automate the decision-making beyond that. So in other words, we see it and then we react to it. We want to have the reaction be simultaneous with the information that we're being fed. That leads to a lot of the opportunities, as you discussed, in regards to, basically dispatches will be generated to the drivers without having any intervention of human, touch or feel, making those decisions. That's a big opportunity for us because it speeds information and takes advantage of the technology and allows the actions for us as a carrier to take place faster. Charlie did touch on something too about the real-time information that's being provided to the customer end. At the end of the day, we're all service providers. That's the only thing we really have to offer. Yes, can we do it faster? Can we do it with quality? Can we, offer it in such a way that, it's more conducive to the customer's need from a timing standpoint? But the main thing is we have to provide a service, and it has to be in a really short window, especially with what the demands on us are for carriers today in our industry. And it's really important that we nail that down for the customer and give them access to it so that they can make better decisions for themselves. Many times customers come to us and ask us for opportunities to say, how can we work with you as our carrier to, understand how we can optimize our own operation, not just you taking advantage of how you deal with our business, but what can you do for us too? And so we have to be able to use this data that we're collecting to pass it back to the customer as well in terms of what we're trying to accomplish within our own operation. I think it helps them better understand why we're working toward efficiencies and why we're trying to do what we're doing as a carrier to provide them a service. And the better understanding we give the customer, more education we give them around that, the better off we'll be longer term in trying to deal with some of these things. Again, the driver shortage, without a doubt, number one issue for this industry. Where we will get to in the next 5 years, I'd love to believe it's platooning and that we'll be able to take advantage of it. I think of it like the airline industry. Most jets, most commercial airlines fly themselves, but you'll never see one unmanned because it's just too big a risk and too big a hazard. The fastest way for us to convince the public that we can do this is to still have somebody in control and at the helm of a vehicle, even though they're pulling a unit behind them that might be automated to the sense of allowing additional capacity to be done by one person versus multiple drivers. That's a real opportunity. And I do believe that you can have a closed loop within different interstate routes to do that. And that's what drop yards are for. And that's how we would take advantage of it, hopefully. And I have worked with some of the OEMs about, look, we have access to these drop yards. It can really make things dynamic for us in terms of being able to move loads and multiple loads with fewer people. And that's where the industry is going to end up at longer term. We're just not a sexy industry. And I don't think the millennials or the next generation coming out is looking to drive a truck. That's the realization of it, right? So we just got to live with the real hard facts. So how do we deal with that? How do we make information our friend? A CFO I had in my past used to say, the person with the greatest data always wins. Well, that's true to a certain extent, but I think Patrick hit on it. Now we need to harness that data and make it really user time friendly for the end user within our own operations as well as for the customer too. So we have to make that data realistic for them. As far as that North Star opportunity, Ravi, I would agree to be a part of continued conversations around that. Okay. Can I say I would or wouldn't right now? I don't think we're at that point. We need to be in a discovery mode about that question.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate for joining us. And I request Nate to say a few parting words before we terminate.
Hey, look, thanks, Ravi. Thanks, all of the panelists. I've respected not only our entire industry, your feedback. This is fun stuff. I agree it's not sexy, but we can transform it together. So listen, thanks for all the hard work. And Ravi, thanks for inviting me to be a guest speaker at this one. I think, Jack, you and I worked together on the one 3 years ago. Different guest speakers, so we had a good time then. But listen, thank you. Thanks for all the hard work you guys do. And I would love to come back in 5 years to see how much we've transformed, because I think our North Star will make data our friend and understand how we change the game starting today.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.